Hi there, Altenew friends. Happy New Year and welcome back. I have 3 essential card making techniques every stamper should know, whether you're new to card making or an expert. In this video, let's look at practical ways of using some of these basic crafting techniques. The style of these cards will be mostly simple with distinct focal points and elements. To keep things consistent, I'm focusing on the Retro Bicycle stamp and die bundle, and I'll use the stamp set in all 3 card examples today. I love the stamp set because the sentiment banners have their own dies for perfect sentiment placement every time. My first essential card making technique is masking. This may come in the form of a mask stencil or by making your own for layered floral arrangements. Again, to keep things simple, I'm using the Halftone Circles nesting die to make my own center cut stencil on white cardstock. Altenew has the circle frame mask stencil, but I didn't get my crafty hands on it. With this mask stencil, I'm making 3 consistent solid circles on another piece of white cardstock. In the soft pastel mini ink cube bundle, I'm using the 3 primaries in this set to color the cardstock. I'll start with Mango Smoothie in the center of my background. Then I'll shift the stencil to the left and blend Rouge. Finally, I'll shift the stencil to the right and ink blend Ocean Waves. Mask stenciling and ink blending go hand in hand. By using solid stencils and a little color theory, you can make modern color-blocked backgrounds. Now with just these 3 colors, I have the perfect background element to frame my retro bicycle. I trimmed down the color Triad to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And now I'll work on the retro bicycle. To oppose the rainbow background, I'll keep the retro bicycle focal image neutral gray. So using Rock Collection, I'll stamp the A1 layer in Industrial Diamond, A2 in Pure Graphite, A3 in Limestone, A4 in Silverstone, and A5 in Permanent Black Crisp ink. I'll foam mount the background color Triad and all the die cut pieces, including the sentiments. Then I'll embellish this card with essential black and white enamel dots. This card involves simple masking and ink blending for a simple colored card design, perfect for smaller or growing crafting collections. Speaking of crafting collections, embossing folders are a crafting staple. I love them for the addition of color and texture. I'm using the Cool Doodles 3D embossing folder to do both for my next essential card making technique. Embossing on white cardstock is great, but embossing on colored or pattern paper is even better. I'm starting with a 6x6 panel of pattern paper from the Wildflower paper pack. To minimize cracking, I'm using the Fine Mister spray bottle with water to adequately saturate the paper before running it through my embossing folder sandwich on my manual die cutting machine. I'm left with this embossed background panel. After letting the paper dry back a bit, I'll use Toasted Mauve fresh dye ink to apply color on the text side of the embossing folder. This will give me a relief printed background onto the pattern paper. As a quick tip, I like to pick colors that are a slightly darker shade than the base color for effortless blending when relief ink printing. So now I have this embossed background with bold doodle motifs that fits the retro-themed bicycle. Since I have the Woodland Escape Fresh Dye inks out, I'll use pink sand for the A1 layer of the retro bicycle, Industrial Diamond on the A2 layer, Dusty Rose on the A3 layer, toasted mauve on the A4 layer, and permanent black crisp ink on the A5 layer. To oppose all the rounded lines and shapes of this card, I'm using the Mini Instant Camera Frame die to cut vellum. Then I'll create a focal area with the frame and bicycle on top of the relief printed and embossed background. This single tone card now has a lot of texture and dimension, and by using ink with your embossing folders, you can create machine-like precision that will make your card recipient think you bought your greeting card at the store. If you're looking for more embossing folder techniques, I've got a whole class worth of them over at Altenew Academy. It's called Embossing Folders, Basics to Brilliance. And there I essentially cover everything that you can do with embossing folders that even goes beyond paper. Then speaking of precision, I actually struggled to do the opposite for my watercoloring. As much as I love the freehand and effortless look of loose watercoloring, I have a hard time making it myself. Over time I've learned that the following technique works really well for me. I'm starting with a few panels of the 9x12 cold pressed watercolor paper. On the smoother side of this beautiful white watercolor paper, I'm heat embossing the floral outlines of Nostalgic Florals stamp sets. I used Altenew Platinum Crisp embossing powder to make both of my heat embossed images. This is where I like to use the embossed resist technique to make loose watercolor florals. My secret to coloring these flowers is the woodless watercolor pencil set. I will saturate the watercolor paper with my fine mister spray bottle until I see significant water droplets forming. Then with the open edge of a pair of scissors and a woodless watercolor pencil, I'll gently scrape away at the pencil pigment to create a fine powder. This will readily disperse on the water droplets, giving me instant color. I'll repeat this with other colors, balancing large areas of wide open space with intense color saturation. If your colors get muddy, you can always lift the water and pigment with a paper towel, like how I'm doing in the center of the flower. Then I can repeat this for the leaves of the floral clusters. So this lays down a solid foundation of color. In order to create depth in this loose watercolor heat embossed resist, I'll use the pencil to drop more intense color where I perceive shadows in the flowers and leaves. The watercolor paper is still slightly damp, which is why I don't get solid blocks of color. It still looks effortless and hazy. I let the panels air dry before die cutting them to reveal loose watercolor florals that don't look muddy and still have dimension. I finished this card by raising the loose watercolor florals on top of my folded note card base. Then I foam mounted the retro bicycle and sentiment. This time I used Blue Mountain's fresh dye ink bundle. After trimming down the overhang, I embellished the card with bronze splatters from the 14 metallic watercolor pan set and antique gold sequins. By using heat embossed resist techniques, we can create effortless loose watercolor florals that balance the solid layers of the retro bicycle for this whimsical scene. In summary, we used masking, embossing folders, and heat embossing to create color-blocked, textural, and effortless applications of these essential crafting techniques. My series encourages you to shop your existing Altenew stash and rekindle their love with newer releases. Perfect Pairings with Jaycee airs on the Altenew channel every second and fourth Sunday of the month. Please make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for tuning in to this perfect pairing episode with me, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hello there, crafty friend, Lydia here. just popping in to say that you can get your daily dose of crafting tips, techniques and tutorials just like this by subscribing to the Altenew YouTube channel. All you need to do is click on that little bell up there and you will never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.